So you only have $100 to spend on your graphics card. Well, today we're going to show you the best options.
Welcome to the $100 graphics card battle, where we have 3 GPUs on the table, all under $100, and they all have something in common, and we're going to talk about that after a word from today's sponsor.
Today's video is sponsored by us, PCBros.tech.
PC Bros is our gaming PC business, where we sell awesome gaming PCs, gaming laptops, and so much more, especially the stuff you see here on the channel. We sell over at PCBros.tech for great prices.
The best part about PC Bros is we have PCs that start under $100, so whether you're looking just to get into some office work or some really high-end gaming, we have you covered.
And they all come with our awesome 1-year warranty, which will give you peace of mind when buying a gaming PC from us. So check the link down below to shop at PCBros.tech today and use code ToastyBros2 on checkout to save 2% on your next purchase. Big shout out again to us for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get into the video.
So Matt mentioned that all these GPUs have something in common, and that is they are all NVIDIA. The reason being is AMD at the moment on eBay just doesn't have the greatest bang for buck. We're looking at things like 5600 XTs over $100, and we literally had to stop right at $100. So there may be some better bang for buck if you're willing to spend just a little bit more.
Yeah, the target budget of $100 or less, there's just not a lot of options. We could have thrown in like a 580-2048, but I'll be honest with you, I would pick up all these GPUs over that graphics card nowadays, especially if we're trying to get right at $100. So that's why it's all team green in this video, but we have to introduce each one of these GPUs, tell you all about them, some of the key specs you should know when they release, their VRAM amount, and what kind of things differentiate them from each other. And then we're gonna do some benchmarking with our test bench, our open air test bench with the 9600X. Which would give us more of a mid-range CPU to test things with compared to our 9800X 3D CPU. But let's go ahead and talk about the cheapest GPU first, work our way up, and then we'll dive into some testing.
So first up, we have the GTX 1070 8GB, which was released on June 10th, 2016 at $379 MSRP. This card is an interface of PCIe Gen 3 by 16, and it has 8 gigs of GDDR5 VRAM. Now the port selection on this 1070 is pretty generous. We have 3 DisplayPort, 1 HDMI, and 1 DVI, and we paid $79.99 on eBay for this graphics card.
Next up is this Zotac GTX 1080, which released on May 27th of 2016 at a $599 MSRP. This is a PCI 3.0 by 16 GPU with 8 gigs of GDDR5X VRAM. And in terms of ports, this graphics card comes with 3 display ports, 1 HDMI and 1 DVI, and we paid $96 for this graphics card, which is a pretty good find for a GTX 1080.
And lastly, our newest graphics card of the bunch, the GTX 1660 Super. This card released October 19th of 2019 at $229 MSRP. It is also PCIe Gen 3 by 16, and it has 6 gigs of GDDR6 VRAM. Now this card has the least amount of ports. You have 1 DisplayPort, 1 HDMI, and 1 DVI, and we paid $99.99 on eBay for this card.
So there you have it. We have 3 GPUs under $100. We think these are the best bang for buck, but which one is the absolute best value? Let's go ahead and throw these on our test bench, do some gaming. We'll do some side-by-side testing as well to determine which one is the best option for you budget gamers out there.
All right, we are testing out the GTX 1070. What an OG card right here. So this is a graphics card with 8 gigs of VRAM, which is gonna be more than our 1660, but in theory, the 1660 is newer. It'll probably perform honestly close to the same as this, I think.
Should be very close, but yeah, extra VRAM, and coming at $79 being the cheapest of the options. We're starting off with this one first. Now this is running, I think, basically low settings, 1080p?
Yeah, 1080p, low settings.
No upscaling right now.
Yeah, anti-aliasing is on, but we've turned off any ray tracing that we can, but obviously there is some built-in ray tracing that's forced.
Which all of these GPUs are going to struggle with.
Yeah, none of them are RTX cards. They're actually, they're before RTX even existed.
But yeah, the fact that this game launches without ray tracing, and the fact that it's a $100 or less GPU is nice. The big thing we'll mess with is some FSR, because this does have DLSS support, so we'll see what FSR can do to see if we can get close to that 60 FPS experience. But out of the gates, looking like we're struggling to maintain 30, but it's 30, so.
It's like surprisingly I don't want to call it smooth, but like consistent, you know?
Yeah, it's consistent frame rate, so if you are trying to desperately play this, again, we're talking sub $100 GPU, it's playable.
And let's see, I mean, I'm not seeing like the weapons not being super weird. I remember that was DLSS, we had a little bit of weirdness with the weapon, but no, I mean, there's definitely like some fuzziness, like fuzzy outlines in certain things, but it's not bad. So, okay, so
it's a little higher now.
40 to 50, and then I'm curious too, let's...
what else can we do?
Really just... Oh, we can't, I didn't realize we can't change the resolution.
No, I guess because it is doing it with FSR, so if we did native...
That's funny how sometimes it will let us do that. Yeah, I'm curious, wait, how low can you...
10%.
What does this look like?
What does this look like? Hey, it's like
Wow.
Fortnite. Yo, 90 FPS this is how you have to play it, guys.
This is insane.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? I always say this. I love that they'll let us do this.
Yes, even though, I mean, who's going to play like this? No one, but you can do it.
Oh, there's a nude on the screen. Blur it out, McAllister.
Oh, we gotcha.
Yeah, okay, let's try like a more respectful. Let's try like 50. Honestly, that didn't look as horrible as I thought it. I mean, it's horrible, but...
We're close to 720p
kind of like FSR.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think FSR is nicer because it's a better upscaler than just running like a percentage upscaling. So yeah, pretty comfortably. We're looking at around 30 FPS native, but with upscaling, get about 45, low 50 FPS. So we'll switch to the GTX 1080, which we spent a little bit more money on to see if the extra money spent was worth the extra performance.
All right, Benchmarkus is back at it again, and we are currently on those same settings we started off at before. 1080p, low settings, no upscaling.
It's not dramatically better.
No, feels a little bit.
At
least it feels a little bit smoother.
Okay, yeah, we're getting into the 40s now, so I would say, yeah, he still looks to be.
Oh my
you
God. I got past him?
You did, apparently. He's like, run! Yeah, this seems a bit better because before we were like stuck around 30, so.
Oh, it's like really smoothing out in some spots.
Ooh,
Look at that.
Ooh, wait a minute.
Wow.
It is pretty impressive and kind of sad at the same time that the 1080 is losing driver support because it is such a good card still.
Don't even get me started on the TI too.
The TI is awesome.
That'd probably be getting like 60 FPS.
But, I mean, at the price, again, we paid around $96 after shipping for this one, so we're about $16 more than we paid for the 1070. Looks like we're getting about 10 FPS, maybe a little less, but that's without upscaling too, so we gotta see what FSR can do.
It's also sad too because of like the fact that like the 580 still kind of has driver support. And, you know, those now, I mean, even on eBay, they're still like, what, like 70, 80 bucks for the 8 gig?
Yeah, we had that 470 8 gig that was like 40 bucks, so.
I mean, this is like a pretty good step up, so I wish that, you know, they'd keep it, I wish they'd at least keep it going another year or two.
So you can at least enjoy these cards, but again, as we mentioned, like, you can still play games on them. They're not entirely paperweights, but
useless.
We just want to see those prices stay well below $100 for all of them for them to still be worthwhile for budget gamers.
See how this one handles upscaling.
Yeah, a little FSR, so de performance.
Performance again.
Yeah,
it's definitely, compared to before, like, I remember it didn't look nearly as good and it still wasn't, like, smooth. This is like playable. This feels like I'm on a console.
Yeah, it was like 50, 60 FPS, and then in a more demanding area. Oh, now we're gonna do the manual method.
Right here,
oh yeah, here we go. Yo!
Yeah, buddy. That's looking pretty good. All right, let's
Which again is more CPU bound, so again, your CPU does vary. It doesn't look as good as FSR. FSR is definitely, it's just kind of like our little test of seeing how upscaling is actually working, and it seems to make games look better at 1080p and also more playable.
Well, the 1080 holds up pretty good in Oblivion, but how will a slightly newer GPU but supposedly less performance do in this game?
1660 Super time.
All right, time for the last GPU, the newest GPU, the GTX 1660 Super. Verify we got the same settings, 1080p, full render scale, and low settings with no upscaling. And it looks like...
It's like we're not exactly the 1080 level. So we're getting close.
But better than the 1070 for sure.
So yeah, it is slotted in between pretty nicely. And we are at the 6 gigs of VRAM cap, which I'm not noticing anything obvious that shows we're having any VRAM issues. Because before we were using 7 on the 1070. So there is something happening here. But for the most part, this card is holding up.
Using less power than the 1082, so this is definitely a good example of just, you know, a one generation jump where even though this isn't advertised to be like top of the line like the 1080 would have been, it's not far from it.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that obviously you guys are probably saying at home, it has driver support, which is going to be the biggest thing in terms of it being able to even try to play these newer titles for the foreseeable future. How long will it have it? I don't really know, but it does have it longer than the other cards in this video, and even if the value proposition might be a little bit worse by give or take 10 to 15 bucks, it might be a better option versus the 1080 for most of you.
Seems similar to the 1080.
It's pretty close to the 1080. I definitely think it's handling FSR better than the 1070 does, which is pretty common for these newer GPUs. I will say you're seeing a little bit of that.
Yeah, a little bit of that ghosting.
Yes.
Which I don't feel like we really got with the 1080, weirdly enough.
You might have just had more horsepower to deal with, so FSR is just struggling a little bit, but...
We gotta do the thing.
We gotta do the thing.
We did it for the others.
I mean, we did it for the others, so we just gotta keep it consistent. I'm waiting for McAllister to look over and be like, I can't believe Jackson just did this every single time.
Yeah, why did we do this 3 times in a row?
Because we just wanted to see it. This time we're actually below 100 FPS. Before I thought we were like over 100, so it's a benchmark, guys.
Looks horrible.
And this seems to be about,
not bad, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, a little bit of lag spike there. Yeah, this feels like, it almost feels like this one lowered render scale doesn't feel quite as bad.
No, it doesn't. It seems to be handling it okay.
Oh, okay, so good to know. Basically, yeah, we're kind of in between the 1070 and the 1080, and the price though is a little different on this card because it is the newest of them.
Yeah, so we'll have to talk about the value proposition as we wrap up the video, but let's go ahead and switch to Fortnite and test all the GPUs and see, is there a difference between those two? Again, esports titles, we may not see a major difference, but if you're buying a $100 less GPU, you're probably going to be playing a game like Fortnite. Let's go ahead and switch to that and see what's up. All right, guys, we are now playing Fortnite on 1080p performance mode, a limited frame rate, far view distance, and low textures on the 1070, and running performance mode because, well, performance mode will allow us to get the maximum FPS, and I am noticing something. Our GPU is still almost at 100% on performance mode. Before, it used to not be like that, so in this test, again, this won't be a perfect test because our 9600X is definitely a factor on these settings, but it'll allow us to at least isolate if there is a difference between the two GPUs, with the CPU being the constant in this benchmark. So we'll go ahead and run both tests, hopefully not die instantly every single time, and see if there's a difference between them. And we'll give you all some recommendations on CPUs to pair with these as well towards the end of the video, because there are a lot of different options you can go with.
It just feels too good.
It just feels crazy. I mean, our GPU is almost we're at 60 something percent. We're getting about 300 plus FPS here.
Pretty crazy. Like the 1070 is one of those cards. Like a lot of the people out there would be like, "Oh, it's e-waste. This is e-waste," and it's like, I mean, I get that the CPU is doing some lifting here, but
yeah. And then again, the whole driver support thing really comes down to what kind of games you do play, and we'll talk more about that later. If you're mainly playing like CS, other esports titles, and let's say your graphics card you've had for a while just died on you, and you don't really want to spend a bunch of money right now because the market is a little crazy, buying one of these just to play the same games you've always been playing, not a bad idea.
I say generally you really only need to worry about games that aren't released yet when you're buying a new card.
They're healing. What the hell? What was that?
Oh, they're coming.
Oh!
Oh, they're coming.
Yo!
It locks on. Oh my god.
Oh! 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 What is that? What is this game? Realistically, that's all y'all need to see. What in the... Fortnite is just built different, bro. The FPS was in the 300s most of the times. Honestly, I don't expect to see a major difference across all these cards, especially when paired with the right CPU, but it was a good test to test Fortnite. Let's go ahead and see how the 1080 performs. Are we gonna see the same FPS? Or are we gonna see even more FPS? Let's find out. All right, guys, we're now in Fortnite with the 1080. Now, this is a game, again, we got the same settings here, performance mode, far view distance, low textures. I don't expect to see much of a difference, but we're going to test it anyways to see. Last time we were getting around 300 to 350 FPS. If for whatever reason we average more like 400, then there's a difference. But really, again, this game is gonna be much more CPU bound, so it's really just a test to see, would you go wrong with any of these GPUs if a game like Fortnite was what you're looking for and as your primary game, and then really all you do is focus on getting a decent enough CPU, which, just off the top of my head, we'll probably go into more detail. Something like a 5600, 5500 from AMD, AM4 would be really good value if you want some upgrade path. Or if you really wanted to, and you wanted a good AM5 upgrade path, you can go really cheap and do like a 7600 combo. Get into AM5 if you want to, but I would think the more honest option that most people will do is go like AM4 or even some 12 gen Intel, because yeah, this isn't making much of a difference at all, spending the extra money on the 1080. Obviously you can run higher details, but I kind of want to run the settings that most of you are going to run at home if you're going to play Fortnite. You want the 300 FPS, you don't want pretty visuals at 120 FPS. Or you would see a difference. If you are a gamer like that, then that's really what the other tests are for. But yeah, we'll drive over here real quick. I won't extend this too long because you all saw the gameplay last time. I got absolutely murked by somebody. So just want to show you guys that, hey, driving around the map, we're getting 400 FPS, but to be fair, I did not get to this point with the 1070. It very well could be the same FPS. And we're within a couple frames here and there, and it's running really, really smooth with this configuration. So, hey, this is looking pretty good. Now let's go to something like a 1660 Super. Will there be a difference in Fortnite? Maybe, maybe not. We're technically doing a downgrade in terms of hardware, but we'll jump to that 60. Oh, wait a minute. Oh,
fresh meat.
I'm getting too excited. Ah! That's how you run in high school to the lunchroom. All right, guys, let's go ahead and see what the 1660 Super can do in Fortnite. All right, guys, we're back in Fortnite on the last GPU, the 1660 Super, 1080p performance settings, unlimited frame rate, far view distance, low textures. Then we're going to go right back to the Foxy Floodgates, and it's feeling very, very similar. And it's interesting because there are some points here, like the GPU is being maxed out, just for a bit, not super long though, just loading in a bunch of textures. So for the most part, again, with the CPU recommendations we gave you, you should have a good experience with all these cards on this game. But drivers and potentially the fact that Fortnite is always updating, maybe they change their game engine at some point, maybe 1070, 1080 will start becoming a problem. But either way, if you're just deal hunting in general, because prices are all over the place when it comes to used GPUs, I think if Fortnite or any of these esports titles is your main focus, you'll be happy with a lot of them. Oh.
Bold push.
Bold push, bold plays. Hey, I'm getting 2 kills on this card. It's just automatically
So it's
the better
better.
card. I mean, obviously, VRAM is a discussion point, not with this game. We're using 2 gigs. You're still good. But it's smooth across the board. So me personally, I would probably just spend a little more money on the 1660 Super so you have a little more longevity with some driver updates and stuff to play a game like Fortnite. But just something to note that there is not a major difference. You guys at home will be able to tell a little bit better than me just seeing this live action. But hey, Fortnite, very, very playable. Now we're gonna do the side-by-side testing, the usual, where we go through a bunch of games with built-in benchmark tools to see the worst case scenario, run 3D Mark to get a GPU score, see the cipher point for just the graphics score, because our CPU is a constant here. And then from there, we'll crown the winner of the sub $100 GPU price performance options and talk more about which one we personally would pick up. But let's go and run those benchmarks and wrap this video up. All right, guys, now that we had our fun playing Oblivion Remastered and Fortnite on these 3 graphics cards, let's get a little more technical, shall we? And do some side-by-side benchmarks using some built-in benchmark tools to really compare and see which one is the best option. Now, the first game we tested was CS2, and with the GTX 1070, we ended up with an average FPS of 373 with a 1% low of 160.4, while the GTX 1080 ended up with an average of 446.8 FPS with a 1% low of 177.5, and the 1660 Super rounding it out with an average of 386.4 FPS with a 1% low of 156.2. Now yes, CS2 is a CPU bound game for the most part, but it is cool to see when the CPU remains a constant, we can still see a difference between these GPUs. Now for somebody spending $100 on a GPU, you're probably not gonna have this level of CPU, so the average FPS is definitely gonna be lower, but the gap should be the same, and it shows that the 1080 is the overall better option if you're wanting raw horsepower. Next up, Cyberpunk 1080p medium settings with no upscaling. The GTX 1070 got an average of 53.85 FPS with a minimum of 43.77 and a max of 65.17, while the 1080 ended up with an average of 70.33 FPS with a minimum of 58.27 and a max of 85.32. And lastly, the 1660 Super ended up with an average of 62.2 FPS with a minimum of 52 and a max of 73. Now, strangely enough, in this comparison, when you factor in the driver support and longevity of the card, I really do believe the 1660 Super is the best option here, because it does deliver a playable experience and is not too far off from the 1080. And while yes, Cyberpunk will most likely get some updates at some point in the future, if we're talking about this game in particular, I think the value option of the 1660 Super with its longevity makes a whole lot of sense here, especially with how much performance you're getting. Next up, the Black Myth Wukong benchmark tool, 1080p medium settings with no upscaling. The GTX 1070 pushed out a 34 FPS average, a max of 39 and a minimum of 17, while the 1080 pushed out an average of 42 FPS with a max of 49 and a minimum of 19, and the 1660 Super ended up with an average of 36 FPS with a max of 43 and a minimum of 16. None of these GPUs are hitting 60 FPS without any sort of upscaling, so you're definitely going to want to run some upscaling like FSR, because sadly all these GPUs do not support DLSS if you're going to get that 60 FPS experience. Once again, the gap between these GPUs and this title is not that crazy, but it does make sense. The price difference between these GPUs is also not that crazy, so realistically, I would still side with the GPU that has longer longevity, even though it does have less VRAM. We're talking about a graphics card sub $100. Yes, you can get a 1080 and be happy with it, but if you want something that's going to last you maybe 2, 3, 4 more years of playing the games that we're showing in this video, you're going to want something that's going to get driver updates. But if somebody wants more performance right now and don't really care about longevity, and maybe you want this card to last another 1 or 2 years, then go with the 1080. It seems like that story is pretty consistent across the board. And lastly, we ran 3D Mark Time Spy to get a GPU score, and then we use our calculation to find out what is our cent per point calculation to see the value proposition of how much you're spending versus the points you're producing in 3D Mark Time Spy. With the GTX 1070, we ended up with a GPU score of 5,906, which is a 1 cent per point score, but to be more specific, and you'll see why here in a second, we ended up with a 0.013338 cents per point score, because again, the 1080 also with a score of 7,756 got a 1 cent per point score, which ends up being more specifically a 0.01238 cents per point, meaning the 1080 is technically the better price performance option because it's, well, by the decimal points a bit better. But again, both of these GPUs are pretty good for the price. And the 1660 Super ended up with a GPU score of 6,031, which ends up being a 2 cent per point score. So in terms of price performance, technically the 1660 Super is not the best option when it comes to raw horsepower. But as we mentioned throughout this video, that is not entirely the whole story here. There's more than just raw performance that we have to consider here, and we're gonna go ahead and bring Jackson back in here and talk more about that and give our overall recommendation on what GPU we recommend you go with at home if you are balling on a budget.
All right, the consensus is in after a lot of benchmarkists and a lot of Fortnitists. We got these 3 cards here, and essentially from pretty much best to worst, we got the 1660, 1080, 1070, with the 1660 and the 1080 both actually tying in a way, and that'll tell you why you may want to go one way or the other.
Now the 1080 is the faster overall GPU, and all the games we tested, it does perform better, but with the lack of driver support coming up here very soon, it's at the end of 2025, the 1660 Super is going to have that longevity over the card, and we're talking, especially in our use case, paying about $3 more for this GPU, unless you are giving up some performance. If you are somebody who needs to have that game-ready driver and want to try to play the latest titles, even though they won't run amazing, you still have the ability to try, the 1660 Super is going to be an option you're going to want to go with. But if you find it cheap enough, let's say you find these 1080s for around 70 to 80 bucks. You're somebody who wants just to play CS2 in the games that normally don't get major driver updates or need major driver updates for that matter. The 1080 is the better overall faster card and still an awesome option for you gamers.
And then the 1070, honestly, its place in this market is just if it's cheap enough. I mean, we saved 20 bucks getting this 1070 here. If you can save like 30, 40, 50, then obviously it's kind of a no-brainer. But if you're only saving $15, $10, definitely go with the 1080 or the 1660 instead.
Now, as we mentioned, guys, at the start of this video, we couldn't find any AMD options that made a lot of sense at under $100, but maybe in the future we'll revisit this topic and AMD will have some more options from, let's say, 5000 series, like a 5500 XT that's easier to get at sub 100 bucks. But if you guys want to buy any of the graphics cards from today's video, check the links in the description down below. They will be affiliate links and they will help us out. Which one of these GPUs is your favorite? And do you want to see any other price ranges on the YouTube channel in the future?
But as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you check out our other 2 YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/toastybros. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Hey, we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
So these 3 GPUs right here will actually go in PC Bros gaming PCs. That means we're going to be building 3 PCs with them, and we will be, I was about to say, giving them all away.
We're giving them all away. Everything's free.
God. Yeah, everything's free if you buy it at PCBros.tech.
It's free with an exchange of money, but you can save some money using code ToastyBros on checkout to save 3% on your next purchase. See you guys later. Bye-bye.